Here is part 5 of my 2017 NFL season recap. In the last episode, I talked about the last 5 teams that just missed out on the playoffs: the Ravens, Chargers, Seahawks, Cowboys, and Lions. And in this episode, we're finally getting to the playoff teams, starting off with the teams that made it and were one and done: the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Carolina Panthers, and Los Angeles Rams in the wild card round. So here we go. So we get started with the worst team in the playoffs this year, and that was the Bills. And after they regressed in 2016, I did not really think much of them. I didn't think they were going to get far at all. But they surprised me by starting off 5-2, and everyone was thinking, wow, they're deep into that playoff mix, including still challenging the Patriots for the AFC East at that point. Everyone was thinking, already crowning them as playoff contenders, and I realized, no, wait. Remember back in 2008 when they started off 5-1, they finished 7-9. 2011 when they started off 5-2, they finished 6-10. The Bills have a history in the last decade of starting strong and finishing in the gutter. So I didn't really think, I thought that was going to happen. And the next 3 weeks after that, they showed that. They got blown out 3 weeks in a row, including that embarrassing loss to the Chargers where Nathan Peterman, whoever it was, threw 5 interceptions in the first half, for crying out loud. Yeah, the Bills looked like they were done for at that point, even though they were still deep in the mix of the wild card round. But they managed to turn it around enough to where they were 8-7 going into the final week of the season. They had to beat the Dolphins on the road, which is a task within itself since the Bills do not have a good history down there. They had to hope that the Titans and Chargers lose, or if they win, hope the Ravens lose since they got the tiebreaker amongst the Chargers and Ravens. So they go down Miami, beat the Dolphins just barely after they blew them out. The Dolphins almost made a comeback. But unfortunately for them, the Chargers and Titans won too. So the Bills had to have the Ravens lose. And fortunately for them, the Ravens choked, the Bengals pulled off the upset, and the Bills were in the playoffs for the first time since 1999, ending the longest playoff drought in the league. So in the wild card round, they visited the Jaguars, and their defense put up a hell of an effort, except for that one touchdown they let Blake Bortles get, and their offense was so terrible, and they went on to lose 10-3. So now, this is a good season for the Bills. They had their first win season since 2014, and of course making the playoffs, but this was a terrible team that honestly was way worse than any 9-7 record it could be. They should have honestly been like a 5 or 6 win team. Look at the stats. Outside of that 6th best rushing offense in the league, thanks to Shady, they're terrible across the board. Even their defense, which was like their best thing, still wasn't that good. They're terrible in anything, and that's why I think they're going to be out of the playoffs and have a losing season next year. I just don't see how they can fix it. And even, the only thing I could think of in the draft that they might do is maybe get a QB to replace Tyrod Taylor, although that most likely would be later on. I just don't really see what they can do to get them back in the playoffs. I just think they're just fucked next year. But hey, at least they no longer have the longest drought in the league, and they finally made the playoffs last year, because that was the only bright thing that came out of last year, because other than that was terrible. So good luck, Bills, next year, because you're going to need it. Then we get to the Chiefs, who, after kind of a disappointing finish last year, 12-4, but one and done in the playoffs, I really didn't think they were going to be doing that much different. But of course, this was like a big year for them as they brought in Patrick Mahomes in the draft. So this was like Alex Smith's last stand with the Chiefs, and they better make a deep playoff run this year. And starting off the year, they actually surprised me. They started off 5-0, and they legit looked like a Super Bowl contender, actually, for the first time in all their years with Andy Reid. However, they fell off a little bit. They lost 2 in a row, including that tough loss to the Steelers, which they could not have afforded to lose. But they beat the Broncos on Monday night. So here they were, 6-2. They were tied to Patriots and Steelers for the AFC supremacy. So it still looked like they can make a deep run in for a Super Bowl possibly. But then they went on to lose 4 straight in a row. Their defense completely collapsed. Their offense was struggling. They were 6-6. They tied the Chargers and Raiders for the AFC West lead, and it really looked like the Chiefs were going to bottom out and miss the playoffs, and the Chargers were going to actually win the division. The Chiefs then went on to beat the Raiders. They then embarrassed the Chargers on that Thursday night game thanks to all those turnovers they made. And they went on to win the rest of their games to finish 10-6 and win in the AFC West for the second year in a row, actually. So they made it to the playoffs. They hosted the Titans in the first playoff game. We were thinking, okay, the Chiefs are struggling, but come on, the Titans are terrible this year too. They can't lose this one, right? Well, the first half, they were playing just like we expected them to do. They were up 21-3 and looked like they were going to run away with this thing like they should have. But then the second half happened. They were shut out by the Titans. The Titans scored 19 unanswered points to win the game 22-21 and ended a very disappointing season for the Chiefs. Man, what a difference the first half of the season makes to the other. This team kind of flipped from the previous years where it was a mostly defensive team and their offense was not really that good. This offense was pretty good as you look at the stats. They really did try their hardest to make it to the playoffs and Super Bowl this year. That defense, however, completely collapsed, and this is starting to look like the Chiefs from the early 2000s where it was an all-offensive team with no defense to back them up. So we already know what's the future. They've just traded Alex Smith to the Redskins. Now, of course, that trade's not official till another month from now, so he's still on the Chiefs till then. But once it's done, Patrick Mahomes is now the future with the Chiefs. And he did play earlier this year. Remember, he started that last game of the season at the Broncos, and he really did not look that good, to be honest with you. So I actually have some concerns going into the season. But, of course, that is one game. He's going to be a star, so who knows? Maybe he'll actually be good next year. But they really got to rebuild that defense in the draft. It's up there in age, and they're just not effective anymore. And if the Chiefs going to want any shot now to make the Super Bowl, now they got to fix that defense if they want to have any shot to make it there. But I really just don't have a lot of faith in the Chiefs to do so. And I just don't think they still might maybe make a playoff run for wildcard team, but I really think the Chargers might just have it this year. Or maybe the Raiders will come back again. Maybe the Broncos could be competitive once again. The Chiefs have a lot of questions, and I just don't think they're going to be able to answer them. So we'll have to wait and see what happens next year. But I'll be looking forward to seeing what the Mahomes era can be, though. And then we get to the Panthers, who, after suffering their Super Bowl hangover in 2016, I did think they were going to bounce back, because that team still had a lot of talent around them. It was just a matter of how far. Are they going to bounce back enough to maybe be around 500 or something like that? Or maybe were they going to bounce up enough to maybe make a playoff run and maybe challenge for the NFC West? NFC South, I mean to say. Because I didn't think the Falcons were going to... I thought the Falcons were going to have a Super Bowl hangover. I still didn't think the Saints were going to be that good. So I thought it was probably going to be maybe them and the Buccaneers maybe challenging out for the NFC South. And at first they started off 4-3. Their defense was pretty good. Their offense, not so much. But they managed to turn around enough. They were 11-4 going to the final week, where not only did they already make the playoffs, they had a shot to not only win the NFC North, I don't know why I keep mixing up, NFC South, they also had a shot until the Vikings won earlier that day to win first round bye. That was still up in the air, for crying out loud. But of course, the Panthers shat the bed, of course, like they always do when they visit the Falcons. They got blown out, so they were forced to be the 5th seed, where they visited the Saints. And just like all season, the Saints just had their number. The Panthers made it close. They tried to make the comeback, but they just couldn't do it in the end. So at least they had a good turnaround. They made it back to the playoffs, but of course, one and done in the playoffs kind of leaves a terrible sting probably in their mouth. Now, of course, when you look at their stats, offensively, they're not really that good, other than that running game. I mean, Cam Newton, other than that 2015 season, he's really kind of underwhelmed, actually, as a first overall pick, to be honest with you. It's actually starting to get a little bit disappointing seeing how he's played. Now, that defense, though, was pretty damn good, like it's always been historically for the Panthers. But that pass defense is really terrible. I bet they're still regretting letting Josh Norman go like they did. So, going to the draft, the Panthers need to fix that secondary, and they need to get some wide receivers to help Cam Newton, or else they're probably going to fall back, I think, in the NFC South. Because how the NFC South finished this year, with 3 teams making the playoffs 3 of them getting 10 or more wins, and the Buccaneers being last, even though they're honestly not that bad of a team. Something's going to have to shake up in the NFC South this year. I can't see how all 3 of these teams are going to be good next year. Someone has to collapse. And I honestly think it could probably be maybe the Panthers falling off a bit and missing the playoffs, because they got a lot of things going against them. But if they fix it in the draft, maybe they can still make a playoff run next year, because they got a lot of holes to fix. But hey, at least the Panthers made it back to the playoffs, but it's not going to look good for them in my eyes in 2018. And we finished off the video by talking about the Los Angeles Rams. Wow, what a difference this season made. They, along with the Jaguars, I think had the best turnaround this season by a 7-game improvement. Now, going into the season, none of us expected anything good for them. They went 4-12 the year before. Jared Goff looked like a bust in his first year. Todd Gurley looked absolutely terrible. We didn't expect much for them at all, and I thought it was going to be pretty much the Seahawks easily win the NFC West again. But the Sean McVay, their head coach, and an offensive genius apparently, came in and he turned that deep offense completely around, and they were the #1 offense in the league. And I mean, if you look at their stats, they were pretty good across the board and everything, and they easily pretty much won the NFC West and made the playoffs for the first time since 2004, and won the NFC West for the first time since 2003, back when they were in St. Louis. And of course made the playoffs for the first time in Los Angeles since 1989. And of course they hosted the first game against the Falcons, and they just couldn't really pull it off. The Falcons completely shut down their offense pretty much, and they just couldn't seal the deal. So wow, what a humongous difference a year makes, showing how much Jeff Fisher held that team back in 2016. Todd Gurley had an unbelievable rebound year, and actually almost could have had, I think, should have had maybe the comeback of the year award or whatever that award's called. And Jared Goff looked like the first round pick that he was back in 2016. This offense is legit really good. Now that defense is a little suspect, even though they brought in Wade Phillips to be their defensive coordinator. That really was not good defensive stats for a team of usually his caliber. He's turned defenses completely around, like the Texans and the Broncos, within like a year or something like that. So it's kind of surprising how underperformed they were this year. So going into the draft, that probably should be like the main thing that the Rams should focus on, is fixing that defense. And they probably, especially that run game too, that rush defense was the 5th worst in the league. They maybe should go looking into finding someone who can be complement to Aaron Donald on that front four. That could really, really help out that defense. And I know that they're probably not going to do this, but they really should maybe look into maybe find a wide receiver, because Tavon Austin really has not been that impressive in his 5 years with the Rams. And they brought in Sammy Watkins from the Bills, and he really didn't do that much either. So they really should look for a third wide receiver to maybe be a future like replacement of either one of those two, or maybe both of them. Because if they can do that and have like a triple offensive juggernaut with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, that Rams offense could be unbelievable for the next bunch of years. But even though they had a really good season, a surprising season, I still have a little bit of concerns about, are they going to maintain this going into 2018? Now, I already talked about this with the 49ers. I don't fully believe they're hype yet to challenge the Rams. I think the Seahawks are probably going to be around where they are, so they could still maybe outright win the NFC West and make the playoffs, but I'm not fully convinced they're going to be able to maintain that 11-5 record and do better next year. I just don't really see it. But hey, at least they had a really good season. They look very bright for the future in Los Angeles. So hopefully for them, they can keep on getting better. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comments, as in part 6, I'll talk about the teams that made it to the divisional round, be it the Titans, Falcons, Saints, and Steelers. So see you then.